To the eminent scholars, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen present today. My name is Shambhavi Sharma and I'm currently pursuing LLM in Maritime Law from MNLU Mumbai. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the inaugural lecture for the Sir C.P. Srivastava Memorial Lecture Series, a joint initiative of the Center for Maritime Law and Research, Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, and the Directorate General of Shipping, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India. Padma Bhushan, His Excellency late Sir Chandrika Prasad Srivastava was a pioneering leader and visionary in the maritime world. Sir was an institution builder and an international administrator with a Midas touch. He was the longest Secretary General of IMO, a record unbroken, and was an instrumental member in setting up pioneering institutions such as the World Maritime University in Sweden and the International Maritime Law Institute in Malta. Sir was a rare blend of humility, farsightedness, sound judgment, and resolve, with leadership being his natural forte. We extend our gratitude to Sir for being a constant source of inspiration for our center. The topic for today's inaugural lecture is maritime law and its prospects for India. Recently, India chaired the UNSC for the first time ever, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi advocated for an environment which is conducive to the legitimate maritime trade and the need for settling maritime disputes peacefully. The biggest takeaway from it being the recognition of UNCLOS as essential guidelines for international maritime security for the first time ever. The Government of India has time and again stated that blue economy and harnessing its power is a vital step for the 2030 developmental plans for India. It said that Neel Kranti will open a floodgate of opportunities for India. But what do these prospects actually entail? How can these be achieved? Are just some of the questions that will be discussed in today's session. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Dr. Cleopatra Henry, President, World Maritime University, Mr. Ash Mohomad, Deputy Director General of Shipping, Government of India, our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey, and our guest speaker for the day, Professor Proshanto K. Mukherjee, Emeritus Professor of Maritime Law and Policy, World Maritime University. I thank you all for being able to join us today despite a demanding schedule. I would like to introduce our Registrar, Sir, Professor Anil Variath. Sir started his academic career in 2000 and is currently the Registrar as well as the Director and Controller of Examination, MNLU Mumbai. Sir has keen interest in constitutional law, corporate law, and environment law. I would now like to request Sir to please extend the welcome address.
Thank you, Shambhavi. Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey, sir. The guest of today, Dr. Cleopatra Henry, and guest of honor, Sri Ash Mohomad, and the chief guest who has agreed to deliver the inaugural address today, Professor Proshanto Mukherjee, all the dignitaries who has assembled here on the online platform. My hearty welcome on behalf of the MNLU Mumbai, its members of the staff and faculty and students, to all of you. Maritime law is one of the most ancient branch of commercial law because it has started evolving along with the international trade. Needless to say that the international trade has developed through the sea route. Presently, after the globalization, the importance of international trade has grown manifold, so the importance of maritime law also. As a common man, I may understand the four principles of maritime law as maritime safety, navigation safety, the commercial spirit, and the environmental aspect of maritime law, environmental protection. But when it comes to international aspect of maritime law, things are more complicated. and the process and procedure needs a better understanding of the maritime law and specialized knowledge in different aspects of international maritime law. So there is a need to spread the awareness and knowledge of maritime law as on today. With this objective in mind, the Maharashtra National Law University has started a Center for Research in Maritime Law. And we are so happy that we could align ourselves, collaborate ourselves with the Office of the Director General of Shipping, Government of India. And the Director General of Shipping, Government of India has patronized the center. And recently we have recruited faculties and research assistants to the center. And we have also introduced an LLM in maritime law. But apart from a regular course, this type of webinars, this type of seminars, short-term programs, conferences, that will be helpful to spread the knowledge of specified areas in international maritime law. So we are also happy that today we are blessed with the presence of Dr. Cleopatra, who is also the president of World Maritime University, with whom we are looking forward to have further association. Since my responsibility is to extend a welcome to all the guests of honor, I take the privilege to extend a welcome on behalf of our Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, members of the staff, and the students to Her Excellency Dr. Cleopatra, the President of World Maritime University, to the Maharashtra National Law University on its virtual platform today. A hearty welcome to you, Madam. I have already mentioned about the patronage of this center by the Director General of Shipping's office. And now we have Sri Yash Mohomad with us, who had always been very helpful to the university, and we closely interact with him. He is also a guiding spirit for us, and it is my duty to welcome him on behalf of the university to this virtual platform. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The keynote speaker, Professor Proshanto Mukherjee, who is an expert in the area of maritime law. He is present here, and I know that you all have assembled here to get enriched yourself out of the words which is coming from the guests of honor today. So it is my privilege that I got an opportunity to welcome such a eminent personality like Professor Mukherjee to this August gathering. Sir, on behalf of the Maharashtra National University, its Vice Chancellor, the members of the staff and students, I extend a very hearty welcome to you, sir. And to all those who have joined on this virtual platform, it is my duty to welcome you because you are adding strength to our endeavors. So I welcome each one of you, and I wish Mr. Vardhan as well as Mr. Aman and even Sambhavi, who are taking, monitoring and taking the program forward, a grand success with this in this virtual program. So thank you very much, sir. Once again, welcome to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our guest of honor, Dr. Cleopatra Dombey Henry, President, World Maritime University, an international lawyer and global leader. Ma'am has over 3 decades of professional and academic experience. She's the first woman president, the first president from a developing country, and the seventh president of the WMU. She's also a panel member for the Rapid Response Labor Mechanism of the United States-Mexico-Canada Border Agreement, USMCA. I warmly welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of MNLU Mumbai and request you to kindly share with us a few words of wisdom.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for your very kind words of welcome. Mr. Sri Kumar, Director General of Shipping and Additional Secretary to the Government of India. Professor Dilip Ukey, the Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra National University in Mumbai. Professor Mukherjee, our Professor Emeritus of the World Maritime University. I would just say all protocols observed, distinguished guests. As President of the World Maritime University, it gives me great pleasure to address you today on the occasion of the inaugural lecture in the memory of Sir C.P.V. Srivastava, the founding Chancellor of the World Maritime University. In the early 1980s, the International Maritime Organization identified a shortage of well-qualified, highly educated maritime experts, particularly from developing countries. In order to address this gap, Dr. Srivastava, the then Secretary General of the IMO, proposed to establish a postgraduate university focused on educating the maritime leaders of the future. Following the IMO Assembly Resolution A501 at its 12th session on 20th November 1981, the IMO established WMU to support member states with a high caliber education in the maritime field. With the financial support of the Swedish government, the city of Malmö, and private donations, WMU was officially established on the 1st of May and inaugurated on the 4th of July in both dates in 1983. Dr. Srivastava became the first chancellor of the university. There are two objectives enshrined in the WMU Charter. The first is that WMU shall be the lead international postgraduate education and research institution. And the second is that it should be a center of excellence for the promotion and advancement of shipping and related fields. These include the improvement of maritime safety and security, the protection of the marine environment, the efficiency of international shipping, and other marine and related ocean issues. All of this in furtherance of the purposes and of the objectives of the United Nations system, but in particular of the IMO as a specialized agency of the UN. It shall be, as indicated in the first charter of the university, a fundamental objective of the university to provide the international maritime community, and in particular, developing countries, with a center for advanced maritime and oceans education, research, scholarship, and capacity building, as well as ensuring that they have the effective means for sharing and the transfer of technology from the developed to the developing world. All of this with a view to promoting the achievement globally of the highest practicable standards in matters concerning maritime safety and security, the efficiency of international shipping, the prevention and control of maritime pollution, including air pollution from ships, and other marine and related ocean issues. Today, WMU has grown in size and in strength, and in its ability to serve the needs of the maritime and wider ocean community. WMU has achieved tremendous success and impact as a unique international academic institution within the United Nations system. And today, with 5,392 graduates from 170 countries and territories who are serving their home countries and the international community at the forefront in the maritime and oceans field. Out of this number of graduates, 1,181 of them are women. And since 2016, more than 30% of the students in the WMU's Malmo program are female. In our 2 programs in China, I am very pleased to indicate that we have reached 50% parity in our Shanghai program. We continue to pursue the efforts to increase the number of women enrolled in our programs. WMU alumni, and many of you I know from India are following this webinar now, that you are now holding positions of prominence around the world. You serve as senior maritime officials in ministries. Some of you have gone on in other countries to become prime ministers, directors of shipping companies and ports, as well as being heads of maritime academies and in international fora and other organizations. WMU as a center of global excellence, recognized by the IMO and the UN, is playing a significant role in maritime and oceans education, research, capacity building, and economic development, while promoting the role of women in the maritime sector. WMU delivers postgraduate maritime education and confers master's and doctoral degrees in 10 maritime and ocean specializations. Our high-quality education is complemented by the distance learning and professional development programs, our maritime and ocean research clusters, and our capacity building activities delivered for and on behalf of the IMO, its member states, and the global maritime communities, of course, including the oceans. The achievement of WMU have laid the foundation, a very solid one, on which we can continue our key role in preparing the next generation of maritime and ocean leaders. They reflect a period when the IMO, the WMU, and indeed the global community have experienced significant changes and challenges. We have witnessed the greatly increased awareness of the influence of the oceans and of maritime activities on both the global economy and the environment. WMU, along with the IMO and many others in the oceans community, have responded. I would like to quote a message from Dr. Srivastava on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of WMU. And I quote him because it's so important, as particularly in the framework of this event. He said about WMU, "The excellence of the World Maritime University that it has achieved in providing a variety of education, research opportunities, outreach programs, and specialized courses to the world maritime community is a matter of great pride. He goes on to say, the principal goal of creating a parity between the expertise and knowledge of developed and developing nations has been and will continue to be served. The mission of uniting the world maritime community so that they are able to follow and interpret the global regime of maritime protocols and conventions is realized. At my age of 93, not mine, his, I feel fortunate, he said, to have lived to see the high water mark of achievement of the World Maritime University. End of the quote from Dr. Srivastava, himself reflecting on the achievements of WMU. As one of the most successful universities in the UN system, we envision a period of even more growth in the reach and the impact of both its academic and its research programs. WMU will be continually enhancing its education, its research and capacity building programs, taking into account the impact of technology, innovation, regulatory developments, and the importance of delivering on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Going forward, and as it matures and continues to mature, WMU is now focusing on even more on building and strengthening partnerships with governments, with industry, with international organizations, and of course with academia, and deepening the very important relationship of our WMU alumni, many of whom are attending this webinar today. We expect that WMU will continue to be dynamic, to be forward-looking, and perhaps most importantly, relevant to the needs of the maritime industry and the oceans community of today and tomorrow. To do so, we rely on our esteemed partners globally, including our partners from India. To date, 224 Indian maritime professionals have graduated from WMU, making it the third country with the most WMU graduates. I am pleased to see Dr. Kumar today, with whom we are discussing an expanded support from India to WMU. In an uncertain world in which we now live, such as the disruptions caused by COVID-19 pandemic, our graduates are needed more than ever before to contribute at different levels and in different sectors of the maritime and ocean industries to minimizing the turbulence being experienced with global trade and the supply chain. Dr. Srivastava will be remembered as the visionary that he was, and with the pioneering role and his ceaseless efforts in the establishment of WMU. We would not have a WMU without him. We are so grateful. He made extraordinary efforts as the longest ever serving Secretary General of the IMO to secure the generous cooperation of the Swedish government so that his dream of a postgraduate university focused on educating maritime leaders of the future could become a reality. Every time that I hold meetings in what we have named the CP Srivastava boardroom at WMU, I am inspired by the vision that he had in establishing this truly remarkable academic institution in the UN, or within the UN and the IMO system, a university that it is today for the world, a university that is dedicated to inspiring leadership, innovation for a sustainable maritime and oceans future. I want to wish you well as we continue with this very important webinar and the celebration of a giant, of an innovator, one person determined to ensure that the world was not in silos and that the developing world had the expertise, the experience, and the leadership qualities to ensure that they could effectively participate in maritime and ocean affairs. We are very proud of Dr. Srivastava for his vision, and we will always remember him in our hearts and in our prayers. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words of gratitude towards Sir C.V. Srivastava and for all your work towards increasing the presence of women in this field. You're the beacon holder of Sir's vision at WMU, a profound responsibility which has been rightly given to you, ma'am. Thank you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our next guest of honor, Mr. Yash Mohomad, Deputy Director General of Shipping, Government of India. Sir has experience handling merchant shipping law, shipping development, international cooperation, and matters related to International Maritime Organization at the Directorate General of Shipping, Ministry of Ports and Waterways, Government of India. I warmly welcome you, sir, on behalf of MNLU Mumbai and request you to kindly share with us a few words of wisdom.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me apologize on behalf of my DG. He was supposed to address this gathering, but due to some urgent meeting called by the ministry, he is unable to attend. He has directed me to attend the meeting. Respected Vice Chancellor, respected President WNU, respected Registrar, Professor Mukherjee, and all the distinguished guests. Let me first pay my homages to the late Dr. C.P. Srivastava, who was first Secretary General of the, four-time Secretary General of the IMO, and a big figure in Indian shipping fraternity. Today's theme is Maritime Law and Prospect for India, for which we have invited Professor Mukherjee to speak and President WMU. Both of them have given their time to address this gathering, and we are enlightened with the words given about the Indian law graduates and other students by the WMU president. As far as India is concerned, the maritime legal fraternity, I want to emphasize certain points because the theme is maritime law and prospects for India. So for the benefit of students and all the gathering, because this is a national school and various students must be attending the address. So let me give some facts about Indian maritime industry and Indian maritime fraternity and how we can grow and how the prospects of Indian legislation and the legal professional is high. India has a long time history. We have built a glorious maritime history tradition when India used to sail across many seas and carried out prosperous trade with Asian and Middle East countries. Now, after 5,000 years, after we started this trade with the Middle East, we have an extensive coastline of 7,500 kilometers. We have 12 major ports. We have 200 non-major ports, which normally we call the intermediate ports, across the coast of India. As far as seafaring is concerned, we have 4,50,000 seafarers, out of which 2,50,000 seafarers are employed every year. This is a large pool, and this pool is trained in our DGS approved maritime training institute. We have around 155 maritime training institutes, which are imparting the maritime education based on the IMO convention, that is STCW convention. As far as ship recycling is concerned, we have a large hub of the ship recycling facilities in our state at Alang Sosia, which is situated in Gujarat. We have around 155 shipyards and 155 shipyards with 91 Hong Kong Convention compliant shipyards. As far as volume of the shipping recycling is concerned, we are second, and around 30% of total ship recycling in the world, we are recycling around 1/3 of the total volume. Bangladesh is the first and India is the second. We have also ratified Hong Kong Convention in 2019. We have enacted the legislation through our parliament as Ship Recycling Act. We have notified our rules also. So that industry, that recycle industry, again has been taken care of by the regulatory aspects. As far as tonnage is concerned, we are around 16th in the world. If you compare with the dead weight, we are 16th in the world, and 95% of our trade by volume and 70% by value is by maritime route. This is the significance. 90% by volume and 70% by value is through maritime trade. Whole maximum trade is through maritime. Therefore, there is a long prospects of the legal fraternity and legal profession and development of law in India. We have allowed 100% foreign direct investment in shipping industry, so that foreign fraternity can join Indian shipping industry by way of opening their companies or owning the ship under Indian flag. We are also legislatively refining ourselves, and presently two most important bills are under consideration for revamping. First is Merchant Shipping Bill, which will deal with the technical aspect of registration, survey, certification. And we will also enact a new coastal shipping, which will emphasize on development of the coastal shipping in India. Beside this, these are two major. We have a number of legislation, a number of acts, a number of conventions we have ratified. We have ratified around 36 conventions, and we have enacted around a dozen of acts: multimodal transportation, merchant shipping, coastal shipping, suppression of unlawful activities, seamen provident, and a number of other so many acts are there. There is a need that some regulatory reforms is required to be done in certain areas, like illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, which we call it IU fishing. This sector is not fully legislatively controlled around the world, and there is a need that this sector is also legislatively controlled or regulated by enactment of the law across the world. We are also considering, we are in discussion with our Ministry of Fisheries, and very soon we will come up with some of the draft for illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing and all technical aspects related to fishing vessels. There is a scope in the multimodal transportation, there is a scope in the insurance, there is a scope in the Admiralty. I would like to inform the students and the gathering that we have enacted Admiralty Act in 2017, and after this enactment, we have given Admiralty Jurisdiction to all coastal states. All coastal states means all High Court now can exercise Admiralty Jurisdiction around 7,500 kilometer coast of India. So there is a good prospect, what I understand, because we have the legislation in place, we have the convention in place, we have the industry assets in place, we have ports, we have a number of infrastructure, we have insurance expert, we have multimodal expert. There is a large scope, there is a huge scope of development of maritime fraternity and maritime legislation in India. And we are eager. Professor Mukherjee will throw more light. With these words, I will just congratulate all the students and the organizer of the this event, the National Law University, and more specifically the center which we have established in collaboration with the MNLU. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the points you emphasized on maritime law in India, the work that has already been done, and the future that we will certainly be able to achieve. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome our Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey. Sir has spoken at numerous international conferences like the International Conference on Human Rights at New South Wales University, Sydney, Australia, and the International Conference jointly organized by Vienna University, Austria, and the City University, Hong Kong, etc. He has also been a member of various committees of universities, UGC, Public Service Commission, including the Judges Selection Panel, etc. In 2019, Sir was conferred the Best Academician Law by the Indian National Bar Association, New Delhi. Sir is an erudited expert in jurisprudence, constitutional law, and administrative law, and his work in this field is recognized nationally and internationally as well. I would now like to request Sir to kindly give the presidential address.
Thank you, Ms. Shambhavi. Very good evening to all of you. The President of World Maritime University, Dr. Cleopatra, today's guest of honor, Professor Mukherjee, Deputy Director General of Shipping, Government of India, Mr. Yash Mohomad, Registrar, Maharashtra National University, Mumbai, Dr. Anil Variath, my colleagues, Mr. Yash Vardhan, and all other colleagues, and those dignitaries and participants who have joined this platform today for the inaugural of Sir C.P. Srivastava Memorial Lecture Series in Maritime Law. Dear friends, Maharashtra National Law University Mumbai, which was established in 2014, it is just a 7th year, where we offer BA LLB honors courses, regular LLM 1-year course, and then yes, other master's degree programs and diploma courses as well. Along with that, we have 14 centers like Center for Mediation and Research, Center for Arbitration and Research, and the Center of Maritime Law and Research, in association with and supported by Director General of Shipping, Government of India. At the outset, I congratulate the center for organizing such a and taking such initiative and organizing this lecture series in an honor with a towering personality, the doyen of maritime law, not only in India, who is internationally acclaimed one, Sir C.P. Srivastava. As the Center of Maritime Law and Research at Maharashtra National Law University Mumbai, which is rather the center not only meant to offer the specialization in LLM, but rather at the same time, we intend to offer even some certificate courses, some training programs in association with the Director General of Shipping, Government of India. I must proudly say that it is one of its kind of initiatives in the learning of law in India, where it epitomizes a symbiotic relationship between a regulatory institution like DG Shipping and an academic institution. Dear friends, as all of us have gathered today with the limited ability to interact on virtual mode, with the object of celebrating the life of a doyen and to give ourselves an opportunity to be inspired by his commendable work, commendable efforts and deeds. We are really grateful, thankful to Dr. Cleopatra, President of the World Maritime University, Professor Mukherjee, Professor Emeritus of Maritime Law, Delhi University, and Director General as well as Deputy Director General Shipping, Government of India, in joining us to pay tributes to Sir C.P. Srivastava. As many of us may not aware about that he was a figure which was well regarded amongst the administrators and at the same time a well-known steward, as pointed out by his President, World Maritime University, in maritime affairs for his unparalleled negotiating accomplishments. Any attempt to enlist his accomplishments would fall short and insufficient in front of Sir C.P. Srivastava's very towering personality. Together, these attributes of Sir C.P. Srivastava makes it imperative for any maritime law learning institution to also look upon him as a revered figure and a fountainhead from where the blessings and the well wishes are showered upon. But at the same time, we ought to know a bit about him. Who was he? As when we are taking his name, we are introduced and inaugurating a lecture series in his name. Sir C.P. Srivastava was born on 8th July 1920 in India. Having done his BA as well as MA and LLB, then he joined the Indian Civil Service. He has served also the Joint Secretary to the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, from 1964 to 1966. He was the first Chief Executive of the Shipping Corporation of India. At the same time, as it was referred and pointed out, that he was elected in the year 1974 as the Secretary General, International Maritime Organization, a UN body, and served till 1989 for consecutive years. He played a very pioneering role in establishment of International Maritime Academy in Italy, as well as International Maritime Law Institute in Malta also. He was, as referred, the first Chancellor of World Maritime University, who was appointed in the year 1983 to address pressing needs for maritime professionals, particularly in the developing world, developing countries. In the year 1972, he was conferred the Padma Bhushan. In 2005, he was honored with Lal Bahadur Shastri National Award for Excellence in Public Administration and Management by President APJ Abdul Kalam, and 2009 was conferred the second highest civilian award by the Government of India, Padma Vibhushan. Along with these, he authored several books, and two prominent books amongst all those books were Lal Bahadur. One is on Lal Bahadur Shastri, and another one is on the corruption, the enemy of India. And I would urge to those who are keen to know and particularly his philosophy, please have a glance of these two books. But these are not the things, since he was the founder chancellor of World Maritime University as well as Secretary General of International Maritime Organization, so on and so forth. We are honoring him and organizing the lecture series in his name. Rather, along with these, what is important for that he was married to Mrs. Nirmala Srivastava in the year 1947, a founder of the Sahajoga, a spiritual movement which believes and based on the experience which is called as self-enlightenment or self-realization. He said, I quote Sir C.P. Srivastava, that his life is greatly influenced by his wife's movement and motivated that there is only one human God, there is only one God, and there is only one human family around the whole globe, around the whole world. Rather, he said that it enables, this movement enables, this practice enables, who himself has practiced till his last breath. The practice helped him to transform himself from inner side. That's what rather the self-realization, which believes in peace, which believes in love and affection, and so on and so forth. Rather, I must here at this juncture, I am really fortunate to meet, interact, and spend some quality time with Sir C.P. Srivastava at least on 2 occasions. Not only that, to listen to him on several such occasions, at least 7 to 10 occasions on different perspectives of whole life, who believed in the humanity, who believed in peace and prosperity, and who believed in humanity as one religion. And that's what rather the primary reason that we have named this lecture series after such a towering personality, that is Sir Dr. C.P. Srivastava. As you know, coming to the today's inaugural lecture topic, that is maritime law and its prospects for India, I would refrain from going into all the details and all the aspects. Rather, some of them, most of them have been referred by the President, and would leave these to our distinguished Professor Mukherjee, who has joined us all the way from China to enlighten us on the ensuing prospects of maritime law. What little I can say is that the India is perhaps the brightest among all others, given the fact that India is steadily and rapidly emerging as a maritime hub now. I was always convinced about the significance of the ocean in the development of our nation. If civilizations have built up around the banks of rivers like Ganges in India, Thames in England, Volga in Russia, mighty nations are nurtured at the coast of oceans. If rivers are a mark of civilization, then oceans are a reminder for their potential to become great powers. When I say great powers, I deliberately prefer to prefix power with great rather than with super. Ocean offers opportunities not only for trade but also for complementing the civilizational values, thereby acting as a route for the innocent passage of soft powers. At the same time, oceans can also churn out chaos, and our shared past is a testimony of fear of subjugation that was brought through oceans. Thanks to consensus builder people like Sir C.P. Srivastava sir, who through his painstaking efforts, hard work at IMO as the longest serving Secretary General, has successfully facilitated the negotiation process of many maritime treaties. To tap the opportunities for nation building and civilizational scaling, we need to correspond our aspirations with a robust infrastructure support where the shipping industry can harness its potentials and contribute in the exercise of empowering the new India, Nav Bharat. This task is being successfully well undertaken by the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India. However, these efforts should also be matched by a set of laws which is resilient enough to respond to the challenges of the shipping industry and also to the technological advancements which secures sustainable shipping. Our Center for Maritime Law and Research seeks to foster cutting-edge research in the study of maritime law, where the needs of shipping industry gets legal currency and the maritime aspirations of India are being fulfilled. We are confident and we know well that the Director General of Shipping, Government of India and its whole team lends a great support in this endeavor. We really intend to offer training programs, certificate programs, diploma courses, and if possible, even the degree programs either at graduate level or even at master's level in the area of maritime law and research. I know, and Mr. Yash Mohomad would agree with me, that we have received a proposal from World Maritime University few months before or maybe a year before to have a kind of a tripartite association, Maharashtra National Law University Mumbai, Director General of Shipping and World Maritime University to offer some courses. Certainly, with the help of DG Shipping as well as World Maritime University, we at our place, Maharashtra National Law University Mumbai, would like to take all the earnest efforts and steps to materialize, to realize this goal so that we can contribute into the development at national as well as international level. With this, once again, I congratulate the center and thank the President, World Maritime University, Dr. Cleopatra, Professor Mukherjee, Mr. Yash Mohomad, and all others for joining us on this great occasion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words are, as always, a brilliant source of inspiration for all of us. I would now like to introduce and welcome our distinguished speaker for the day, Professor Proshanto K. Mukherjee, Emeritus Professor of Maritime Law and Policy, World Maritime University. He spent 16 years in a seafaring career, reaching the rank of master before entering legal studies. Sir is an IMO legal advisor for the Caribbean region, Senior Advisor, Maritime Policy and International Affairs, Canadian Hydrographic Service, Senior Deputy Director and Professor of Maritime Law, International Maritime Law Institute, Malta, and has 2 prestigious civic awards in China. He is the editor-in-chief of Journal of Transnational and Chinese Maritime Law and is a member of the editorial boards of 5 internationally renowned journals published from the UK, USA, India, Italy, and Sweden, and has numerous publications to his credit on virtually every aspect of maritime affairs and maritime law. I welcome you, sir, and request you to kindly impart on us your valuable wisdom.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sharma. Honorable Vice Chancellor of MNLU, Professor Dilip Ukey. Honorable Deputy Director General of Shipping, Government of India, Mr. Ash Mohomad. And of course, Her Excellency, Dr. Cleopatra Henry, President of World Maritime University, my long-standing friend and academic colleague in the maritime field. I would like to take the opportunity to also recognize the presence of Ms. Yu Xiuwei from Dalian Maritime University, who is representing the Dean of Law, Professor Chu Beiping, who's probably the most distinguished maritime lawyer and law professor in China, and has been a distinguished colleague of mine for the last 8 years at Dalian Maritime University. Good day, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored to deliver this memorial oration in honor of the late Dr. Chandrika Prasad Srivastava to commemorate his life and work. I have been asked to speak on the topic of maritime law and its prospects for India. But before I proceed to do that, I wish to say a few words with utmost humility about my personal association with Dr. Srivastava. Much of what I'm going to say in the next few minutes has already been said by the Honorable Vice Chancellor, but I would still like to crave your indulgence. I first met Dr. Srivastava together with the esteemed Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi at the International Maritime Organization in London in 1983, when I was a member of the Canadian delegation to the IMO. It was a red carpet reception for the delegates attending a meeting of the Marine Environment Protection Committee. Dr. Srivastava was indeed a towering personality, at once gentle and awe-inspiring. In my personal life, he had an overwhelming and lasting influence on my career in the maritime world, and for that, I remain deeply indebted to him. In 1985, he appointed me IMO legal consultant for drafting maritime legislation and advising on establishing maritime administrations in developing countries, mainly to implement IMO conventions. Since then, I have remained an external maritime legislation consultant for IMO and have drafted shipping, port, and marine environmental legislation for numerous countries of both common and civil law persuasions, numbering around 40. In 1989, he appointed me Senior Deputy Director of the IMO International Maritime Law Institute in Malta, of which he was the founder. Even after he retired in December 1989, we remained in touch. In 1998, I was appointed to the ITF chair at World Maritime University in Malmö, Sweden, of which, as you know, he was the founder and founding chancellor. Later, I became Vice President of Research and Director of Doctoral Programs at WMU. In 2008, On the occasion of the Silver Jubilee anniversary of WMU, I wrote an editorial in the WMU Journal of Maritime Affairs paying tribute to Dr. Srivastava. He had singularity of vision and unrelenting zeal for molding and advancing the post-sea careers of maritime professionals of the developing world. That was probably his most inspiring and unique characteristic. He planted the seeds of the organic tree of higher maritime education, which eventually culminated into the establishment of World Maritime University. For training and developing of proficiencies of shipboard personnel, he established the International Maritime Academy in Trieste, which later moved to Genoa, both in Italy. At the peak of his international career, he was a personal manifestation of the epitome of eminence in maritime affairs. He was the longest serving Secretary General of IMO and remained Secretary General Emeritus and Chancellor Emeritus of WMU. In later years, I was privileged to visit him once at Sahaja Yoga in Pune at a family gathering where I met his daughter Kalpana and his son-in-law P.K. Srivastava, who later became Managing Director of the Shipping Corporation of India. On several occasions, I visited him and Mataji at the Palazzo Doria in Cabela Ligure in Italy, together with Dr. Karl Lobstein, then president of WMU. I remained in constant touch with Dr. Srivastava and his other daughter, Sadhana Verma, at the Palazzo, where he spent most of his retirement years. As has already been said, he was born on 8 July 1920 in Lucknow. Dr. Srivastava obtained the degrees of BA, MA, and LLB and joined the Indian Administrative Service. He was Joint Secretary in the administration of Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and was his personal aide. Accompanied him to Tashkent, where the Prime Minister met his untimely demise. Dr. Srivastava later served as Director General of Shipping and was subsequently appointed Chairman and Managing Director of the Shipping Corporation of India. As has already been said, in 1972, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan, and in recognition of his invaluable and extraordinary service to India and his contribution to the maritime world at large, the President of India bestowed on him the second highest national civic honor, the Padma Vibhushan, on Republic Day 2009. There are few, if any, personalities who have in recent memory acquired a stature in public life as elevated and distinguished as that of Padma Vibhushan Srivastava. In recognition of his services and contribution to world shipping, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II conferred on him the title of Honorary Knight Commander of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, KCMG, in 1990. Several such honors, national honors, were bestowed upon him by the kings of Sweden, Norway, and Spain, and by the presidents of Germany, Poland, Portugal, Brazil, Argentina, and Egypt, among others. Passed away on 22nd July 2013 at the age of 93 in Genoa, Italy, and was cremated there. Together with Dr. Rosalie Balkin, then IMO legal advisor, I was the only other person from the maritime world who attended his funeral. Those of us who are torchbearers of his maritime legacy owe him a profound debt of gratitude. I will now speak to the subject of maritime law proficiency and potential in India. In this context, a few words on the historical evolution of maritime law in India should be known. India enjoys a rich maritime heritage in trade and commerce. We know of the remnants of a dry dock in the ancient port of Lothal in Gujarat, which bear evidence to this day of a flourishing sea trade between that region of India and the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea areas. The law associated with India's maritime past is firmly rooted in historical antiquity. In the Manusmriti, known as the Code of Manu in the West, dating back to 900 BC, there were recorded rules of maritime law pertaining to bottomry and the recognition of the maritime contract, which later came to be known as the Fiunis Nauticum. In relatively recent times, the transition of independent India to sovereign statehood was marked by the adoption of several British institutional foundations and superstructures. Among them is the legal framework characterized by the English common law tradition, within which is entrenched in the Indian judicial system, the so-called Admiralty Jurisdiction, which provides for in rem actions in relation to maritime claims. Admiralty law and jurisdiction derives from the English legal tradition rooted in the office of the Lord High Admiral, who, under royal prerogative granted by King Edward III in 1360, had executive and regulatory jurisdiction over all ships and seafarers under his command and over piracy and prize cases. The admiral was empowered to take cognizance of maritime causes, the substantive law of which had a markedly continental civil law flavor drawn from the Rôle d'Oléron, incorporated into the Black Book of Admiralty. It was distinctively different from the common law, which led to serious rivalry between the common law and the Admiralty jurisdictions and the eventual demise of Doctors' Commons, the bastion of Admiralty practitioners and jurists who were civilians. The legacy of the Admiralty law and jurisdiction, which India has inherited, is encapsulated in what I just said. It is within the bounds of this jurisdiction that maritime cases are dealt with in India, including maritime criminal matters. The infamous Alondra Rainbow piracy case turned out to be a landmark decision of modern times involving coastal zone piracy. Fast forwarding to modern times, in international maritime law academia, the name of the late Padma Vibhushan Dr. Nagendra Singh stands out as the most illustrious of Indian maritime law scholars and practitioners. He bore the rare dual distinction of being both a jurist and an author of superlative stature and accomplishment. Volumes 1 to 4 of the British Shipping Law series on international maritime law conventions, and volume 13 on ship owners, which he co-authored with Raoul P. Collinbow, are among the most authoritative works on those subjects. He was a member of the United Nations International Law Commission from 1967 to 1972, and of the Permanent Court of Arbitration at Den Haag from 1967 to 1983. As a distinguished jurist, he was a member of the International Court of Justice for 15 years, from 1973 to 1988, and held his presidency from 1985 to 1988. He received master's and doctorate degrees, substantive and honoris causa, from numerous universities at home and abroad. It is difficult, if not impossible, to identify anyone of such outstanding greatness in the modern milieu of maritime law, internationally or in India. In my humble opinion, this scion of international maritime law, who in his lifetime was larger than life itself, is more than rationale enough for India to pursue world-class maritime law in the current climate of economic advancement. There is ample prospect for that to happen. Modern Indian jurisprudence is remarkably prolific and enjoys quite a high degree of repute and recognition, particularly in the areas of constitutional and administrative law. In the common law countries of Asia, such as Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Malaysia, and Singapore, that degree of international recognition is somewhat less in the private maritime law field, that is, in shipping law. It is pointless to probe into the reasons for the extant state of affairs. Rather, it is important for us to recognize the immense potential for developing the legal side of the maritime sector in India, which can lead to a promising career path for the younger generation of aspirants in the maritime field. This virtually unlimited potential can be realized through sound university education in maritime law, which, apart from the admiralty and commercial branches in the private law side, also consists of international law of the sea and the regulatory maritime law characterized by the numerous IMO conventions, as well as the Maritime Labor Convention 2006 of the International Maritime Labor Organization. Incidentally, the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi is very well known for its higher education offerings in the discipline of international law of the sea. While maritime transportation is largely a commercial activity, there is a vast and inescapable international regulatory dimension to it. Thus, in my view, legal education in regulatory maritime law must be fully explored by relevant institutions. A word of caution regarding the perception of what is maritime law. Those of purest public law persuasion often refer to maritime law as belonging to the genre of shipping law and would fervently distinguish it, mistakenly in my opinion, from law of the sea. In consonance with the views espoused by Frederick Sanborn going back to 1930, the distinguished Professor Edgar Gold of current vintage, and others, I subscribe to the holistic notion that maritime law encompasses both the public and private law dimensions of that discipline. We may curiously observe that etymologically, the word maritime, derived from the Latin, means of or pertaining to the sea, which is an expression quite broad and accommodating, free of any public law, private law dichotomy. In this regard, it is refreshing to note the all-embracing definition of maritime law given by Professor Schönbaum of Tulane Law School. He says, it is the entire body of laws, rules, legal concepts, and processes that relate to the use of marine resources, ocean commerce, and navigation. Thus, boxing maritime law into two watertight compartments and labeling them public and private, in my view, is superficial and counterproductive, especially given the hybrid areas such as maritime labor law and nationality and registration of ships that defy any neat categorization as public or private. Needless to say, maritime law education must be followed by professional legal training and practice. To that end, it is necessary to gain the support and involvement of both the public and private maritime sectors. The shipping industry and its associated collaborators, such as charterers, cargo owners, financial institutions, marine hull and machinery insurers, and protection and indemnity associations, crewing agencies, public authorities, institutions of higher learning, the regulators of legal qualifications, and the legal profession itself must all play their respective roles. The advancement of maritime affairs, whether public or private, depends to a large extent on the availability of maritime law expertise in the country. Hitherto, this expertise held by Indian nationals resident in India as well as expatriates living abroad has been largely obtained from academic and professional institutions in the Western world. That said, there are some who have developed their expertise in India through homegrown experience in the practice of maritime law without the benefit of formal legal education in that field. In this vein, it is notable that India is perhaps the most sought after professional crew supply country in the world, because technical maritime education and training in India is absolutely world class and has been so for many decades. In contrast, maritime law education is markedly deficient or still in a relative state of infancy when compared with Western maritime law institutions and even some in the continent of Asia, such as the National University of Singapore, which enjoys world-class ranking among the top 100, Korea University, Korean Maritime University, Chungang University in South Korea, Kobe University in Japan, and of course Dalian Maritime University, which is my home university at the present time, and Shanghai Maritime University in China, just to name a few. In Japan, China, and South Korea, a number of former maritime academies, or nautical schools, if you may, converted to universities. They have prospered as comprehensive universities while retaining the focus on maritime disciplines. Kobe University of Mercantile Marine, KUMM or KUM, now known as Kobe University, has a history of some 150 years. Dalian Maritime University is now 113 years old. Shanghai Maritime University and Korean Maritime University, they're all striking examples of institutions which have programs ranging from seafarer training in conjunction with bachelor's degrees through master's degrees, right up to doctoral and postdoctoral level studies and research. All of these above-mentioned universities have developed programs in maritime law in earnest within their respective law faculties, especially Dalian Maritime University, with which I am now presently associated as Professor of Law and Foreign Expert. Other sources of inspiration are IMLI and WMU. IMLI confers an LLM in International Maritime Law and a PhD. I was the founding senior deputy director and professor of maritime law there for the first 7 years, right from its inception. It is the second of the two IMO institutions of higher learning, WMU being the first and apex institution, and truly an international center of excellence in all maritime disciplines, including maritime law at postgraduate level. The maritime law and policy specialization offered at the master's level designed for executive level decision making in both public and private maritime law sectors, and the PhD program in maritime affairs, including maritime law. I am proud to say that I was instrumental in the establishment of these programs. I was also instrumental in setting up the joint PhD in maritime and commercial law with Swansea University in the UK and the joint LLM in maritime law with Lund University in Sweden in 2007. I was also instrumental in establishing an independent PhD program at Lund University. The first graduate of that program is presently a senior lecturer there. A bright young Indian maritime law PhD of mine from WMU was a lecturer at Lund University. He is now an associate professor at University of Gothenburg. I'm delighted to say that among the alumni of WMU, the Indian students were among the brightest and the best, at least during my time. And at that time, at WMU, a graduate from China was the first female to win the Chancellor's Medal, and an Indian Chancellor's Medal winner held the distinction of gaining the highest average in the history of WMU up to the year 2011, which was when I retired from WMU. He came from the Indian Coast Guard and is now an assistant professor at WMU. In any developing maritime law system with potential, a desirable first step towards education in that field is the introduction of elementary maritime law subjects as electives in the bachelor's degree course in law, or its equivalent in university law schools and law colleges. This can lead to postgraduate programs at the master's level, providing sound and comprehensive maritime law education, embracing academic and professional needs in the field. Eventually, intensive, innovative, and forward-thinking research leading to doctoral degrees and postdoctoral qualifications can be contemplated. Even more importantly, following the master's specialization in maritime law, serious consideration should be given to recognition of maritime law education by the National Bar Council or association, which will enable qualified lawyers to practice in that field and ultimately also provide adequate maritime law expertise within the national judiciary. The scheme can well be followed in India, where there is vast potential and prospect for development of maritime law. In India, there has been a lack of systematized maritime law education. In particular, private maritime law is an academic area that has hitherto been largely left behind in the Indian higher education milieu, whether within law faculties of universities in general or the national law universities. There is no real specialization in maritime law in an Indian university, including those located in the coastal states of India where there are the major ports. The reasons for the relatively low level of maritime law education are not entirely clear, although some conjectures can be made. It would appear that the status quo in some respects is attributable to a laissez-faire attitude of inertia, that is, an unwillingness to promote change. Happily, however, this now is changing quite rapidly, as I can glean from my recent personal experience, to which I will now refer in synopsis. My first experience was with the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences at Kolkata. An exemplary attempt at promoting private maritime law education was instituted at NUJS in 2010 at the invitation of the then Vice Chancellor, Professor M.P. Singh, I was instrumental in setting it up together with Dr. Abhinayan Bashubal, who was at the time lecturer at Lund University in Sweden, working with me. We delivered an introductory course providing an overview of maritime law. It was offered as an elective to current LLB students with the aim of attracting interest in the subject. We hoped that this modest beginning would serve as an impetus and launching pad for the establishment of a maritime law specialization at the LLM level. Unfortunately, that did not materialize. My association with National Law University Odisha happened next and remains the strongest, perhaps because Cuttack is my ancestral hometown in India. In April 2016, I was invited by then Vice Chancellor of MNLU, Professor Sri Krishna Deva Rao, to advise and assist with setting up the Center for Maritime Law. At the inaugural meeting, I was privileged to meet the now late Samareshwar Mahanti, who was a collaborator in the setting up of the center. He is author of the book Admiralty Law and Maritime Jurisdiction in India, for which I wrote a foreword. It is an exceptionally insightful book, the only one of its kind in India. NLEO has produced a remarkable publication entitled Through the Lens of Maritime Law, edited by Pallab Das, a PhD candidate in maritime law at NLEO. I have contributed a chapter in it as well as in the NLEO Law Journal and twice in the NLEO Human Rights Law Journal, where I wrote about maritime labor law. Apart from initiating maritime law training programs for shipping executives and courses in the LLB and LLM programs under the auspices of the center, NLEO regularly participates in national and international maritime law moot court competitions. Recently, in the renowned Jessup moot, NLEO ranked in 4th place in the world out of over 100. In January 2020, NLEO hosted an excellent international conference on maritime law in which I served as a sessions chairman. In June 2020, I was appointed honorary professor of law by NLEO. In late 2020, during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, I was invited by the Gujarat National Law University to deliver an online lecture, which I did, on the topic of Admiralty Law and Jurisdiction in India. Concurrently, at the invitation of Gujarat Maritime University, I also delivered a special lecture at a seminar for senior Indian Coast Guard officials on the public law of maritime enforcement, which involved considerations of legislative and enforcement jurisdiction, in contrast, and maritime security extending to maritime penal law. I also reviewed the syllabus for the one-year LLM course of GMU. Recently, in July 2021, the Kerala Law Academy Law College in Trivandrum held an international maritime law conference at which I was invited to deliver the inaugural address. I was also asked to review and comment on the course scheme and structure of the maritime law program of Kerala Fisheries University, encompassing law of the sea, maritime jurisdiction and admiralty law, maritime and commercial arbitration, shipping law, marine pollution law, fisheries law, carriage of goods by sea, marine insurance, maritime safety and collision law, ports and harbors law, and maritime labor law. I also reviewed the maritime law syllabus for the one-year LLM course of Cochin University. The course contents and structures of all the maritime law programs which I have just mentioned are comprehensive and challenging for young Indian minds. Today, I am invited to speak to a topic close to my heart at this auspicious gathering co-hosted by the Maharashtra National Law University to commemorate the life and works of Dr. C.P. Srivastava, who himself had a legal background and put maritime legislation at the forefront of the IMO agenda in conjunction with the establishment and operation of WMU and IMLI. In all of this, I am deeply impressed with the efforts being expended by Indian institutions to promote maritime law education at the university level, and I visualize a sea change forthcoming in the near future. Insofar as the practice of law is concerned, more can be done to boost the profession and inject more maritime law expertise into the judiciary. The few who dominate the field of private maritime law have carved out a niche. Their practice is largely confined to cargo damage claims, disputes relating to freight and related charges, charter party disputes, and ship arrests to enforce maritime claims of sorts. Notably, Admiralty Jurisdiction was originally vested only in the high courts of Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai, but it is most encouraging that under the new Admiralty Jurisdiction and Settlement of Maritime Claims Act 2017, this jurisdiction has now been extended to the high courts of Karnataka, Gujarat, Odisha, Kerala, and Hyderabad. If commercial success is the gauge that falls under the watchful eyes of the younger generation of Indians seeking a career in law, then private maritime law is not to be disregarded. To establish a rationale for enhancing maritime law education in India, first, the trend in the emerging Asian economies of Singapore, China, Malaysia, and South Korea must be observed. And second, it must be recognized that even in Europe, the traditional bastion of commercial shipping, there is now a shortage of expertise in maritime law. The Netherlands and Belgium, which are leading maritime nations in continental Europe, public concern has recently been expressed over the dearth of maritime lawyers and inadequate legal education in that field. UK and European continental universities, such as London, Swansea, Gothenburg, Oslo, and Maastricht, to name a few, are increasingly looking to initiate or strengthen their maritime law capabilities. India is a major player in the eastward movement of the world economy, and shipping has much to do with the pace and momentum of that development. India, as a common law shipping jurisdiction with a wealth of history and tradition, can offer itself as a center for numerous maritime law activities ranging from provision of an arbitration venue to a marine insurance market. The admiralty side of the judicial system can be strengthened with advanced expertise in that field of law. There is no reason why the requisite maritime law education cannot be offered by the established as well as the new trendy law universities to meet the needs of modern India. In the course of humbly paying tribute to Dr. Srivastava, I have attempted to highlight the as yet untapped potential in India for a career in public or private maritime law. To realize that potential, specialized maritime law education is needed at the postgraduate level. Given the position of India as an emerging economy in the Eastern Hemisphere, maritime law is a commodity that can no longer be boxed into a watertight compartment with an innocuous label. While young Indians are thriving in the present glamorous realm of information technology, maritime law is being passed by virtually unnoticed. there are numerous opportunities at home and abroad, particularly in new jurisdictions with high growth factors but infant legal systems. Needless to say, government has a formidable role to play in developing strategic objectives and formulating rational policies to effectuate the prospects in maritime law. There is a promising future in maritime law as a career for young Indians, and every effort should be expended to sustain India's position in world shipping and its emergence as an economic force in the years to come. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, sir, for such a detail-oriented and in-depth analysis of the topic. We truly are grateful for your work. Thank you. I would now like to request Mr. Yashwardhan, sir, to please extend the vote of thanks to our guest.
Thanks, Sambhavi. At the very outset, we must say that there could not have been any other better way of expressing our collective gratitude towards Sir C.P. Srivastava, who would always be a source of inspiration even for our center. In the course of it, we were blessed with Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi, as our Vice Chancellor sir has also said, the divinity in humanity whose Sahaj Yog has transformed the life of many human beings across the border. By paying homage to a giant innovator like Sir C.P. Srivastava, we are indeed honoring ourselves. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Center for Maritime Law and Research, MNLU Mumbai, and the DG Shipping on this momentous occasion where we have instituted a memorial lecture series in the name of this towering figure. To begin with, I must first thank our distinguished speaker, Professor Proshanto Mukherjee from Dalian Maritime University, China, who had been fortunate enough to be associated with Sir C.P. Srivastava for more than 30 years. Who else could have been better qualified for this occasion than the torchbearer of the legacy of Sir C.P. Srivastava himself? And we are fortunate to have two of them. Your remarks about the state of maritime education in India will be taken in good spirit. And I must say that Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai has already started addressing them. We are also thankful to Her Excellency Dr. Cleopatra, President of World Maritime University, for taking out time to pay tribute to Sir C.P. Srivastava. I must say, we will be banking upon the deepening ties of World Maritime University with its alumni. If I may have the liberty of saying so, ma'am, I would say the deferred dividends of World Maritime University would now be the institutional builder over here in India. I hope your message would force many of us here in India to rethink about the role of an institution builder. Can you think of a world, or can you think about a world without the contribution of Sir C.P. Srivastava? What the shipping world would have been, or what the maritime world would have been deprived of had Sir C.P. Srivastava not have established the World Maritime University? These questions will always be a reminder for us. Ma'am's address has confirmed that Sir C.P. Srivastava should not only be regarded as one of the makers of modern India, but also as an architect of global world community. We look forward to more such associations with World Maritime Universities as well as with the Dalian Maritime University. We would like to thank also Ash Mohomad sir, and along with Ash Mohomad sir, the director of DG Shipping, Shri Amitabh Kumar sir also, who because of his busy schedule was not able to join today. Ash Mohomad sir, the Deputy Director General of the Shipping, for sparing his time from a very busy schedule. We all know how much of work Director General of Shipping's office is having, and still he managed to get out some time and join this this session for giving or paying the tribute on behalf of the Director General Shipping's office himself. We are thankful to the officers from DG Shipping like Captain KP Jayakumara. I can see Captain J. Jayakumara sir has also joined, and Captain Shri Barik sir and Vikrant Rai sir. I guess Vikrant sir will be very soon joining us again in this same series about decarbonization, and all the other participants, other active participation for their own participations. Honorable VC sir, we are extremely grateful for you for allowing us to go ahead with this particular program where we have taken an initiative where we wanted to pay our gratitude to Sir P. Srivastava. At the same time, I am also thankful to the Registrar sir for his humble welcome address. And I must also thank our staff members, in particular, Manohar sir, for providing us all the logistic supports and all. Thank you all young participants for joining, and I hope you all will appreciate the promising prospects of maritime law, which has been highlighted by distinguished Professor Mukherjee today, and what it entails in that prospect, with which I guess all the students will be concerned about, is the prospective prosperity also. The prosperity aspect is equally very important for all the students. And above all, I would also like to thank the Almighty who have given us the inspiration to celebrate the life and the work of Sir P. Srivastava. Thank you all once again for joining. Over to you, Shambhavi.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you to everybody who joined. You can please log out now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Real
you.
pleasure.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moms.